Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to quite near the end, really, of Friday. So I hope you've had an excellent week. And it's fantastic to see you here this afternoon for our Google Digital Garage live session on keeping your family safe online. So my name is Glenn. It's a massive pleasure to be here again today for you, and I'm looking forward to getting to know a few of you, probably in the chat function. I'm a trainer for Google's free skills training program, Google Digital Garage. So I'm an experienced digital trainer, digital skills trainer, with a background in management, consultancy, helping businesses identify ways to grow, but of course, very concerned with family matters. And I do have a great interest in cybersecurity as well. So hopefully there's a bit of experience that I can add to this session for you this afternoon. Now, I'm not on my own. You will be able to see in the chat, which will be to the right or underneath your screen, the wonderful Sarah. Now, Sarah is in the chat. You can see her as Sarah B, and she's got a little blue spanner just by the side of her name. So please do pop into that chat, say hello to me, say hello to Sarah, and really join in. This is a great module in terms of getting involved, letting us know your thoughts, your concerns, and any comments that you've got on the content that we're going to be running through very, very shortly. Now, if you can't see the chat function, it might just be that you need to sign into your YouTube account. If you don't have a YouTube account, then maybe you could consider signing up for one. It's got some great functionality, giving you access to who knows, infinite amounts of material, really. Definitely more material than you'd ever be able to watch in your entire life. And you have a history function. So if you want to come back and look at any areas in this webinar again, then you can go to your history function in YouTube and actually watch it again for the next 24 hours, if that's something you'd like to do. We always advise to have a pen and paper or a note-taking device ready to take some notes and to really just absorb the information as we go. So remember, you can revisit with any time now at the end of the webinar for the next 24 hours or so if there's anything you'd like to run through again. Now, before we get going, let's just make sure everything's working okay. So if you're having any difficulties with sound or with vision, refresh your browser. That should hopefully fix things. Close it down, start it up again. That seems to work in so many areas of tech, as I found out for myself today on a couple of instances. So please do get involved. Please make sure that you're comfortable. Ask us some questions too. Drop them into chat. Sarah's going to be answering the majority of those questions for you. Otherwise, there might be a couple that I can answer on screen as well, but we'll just see how that goes and see how involved everybody's getting in terms of you, the audience. So we look forward to that as well. So yeah, please get involved. It does help to brighten up our day a little bit too. Now, we're running this Google Digital Garage virtual training as part of a broader offering of courses that you'll find on the Google Digital Garage site. That's g.co/digital garage. Go on there, you're going to find access to many, many more live training sessions like this one across a myriad of digital topics. You can also sign up for courses on the very same site. Fundamentals of Digital Marketing is one key area where you can gain a certification upon completion. So go on and have a look around, see how you can help yourself to grow and develop through some of the no-cost offerings that we've got available to you. Again, Sarah's dropping the links in as I speak. Fantastic. So click on those, bookmark them for later, and you may well find something you'd like to undertake yourself as a bit of a course, getting up those skills, developing, something that we all need to do, something that I think a lot of us really do enjoy doing as well, especially when we can do these things in our own time. All right, so let's get underway and have a look at what we're covering today in terms of keeping your family safe online. As you can see, the subheading there is Learn of the Risks Children Face and How to Proactively Deal with These Challenges. So we're going to be talking through some of those. Now, we're working with internetmatters.org today. This is our partnership for this webinar. Internet Matters is a non-for-profit organisation that has a simple purpose: to empower parents and carers to keep children safe in the digital world. So you as a parent, me as a parent, we've all got our concerns, and we want to be able to educate ourselves and each other about web safety, what that can mean in a broader sense for your family. So Internet Matters have partnered up with Google. Google's got a deep understanding of technology, so we can help guide parents through the many issues that can be experienced when using the internet. So these two organizations just make absolutely natural partners, as you'll see as we work through the fantastic content this afternoon. We're going to help you initially to understand online safety and to understand some of the concerns that are out there, some of the things that may have troubled us in the past or may be troubling us now, that we want to talk about, that we want to get to the bottom of, and that we want to find solutions for. So there are key areas of concerns that parents do have. Now, the second section is about keeping your children safer online. Look at the specific risks that children can face online and look at some tools that we can use to combat these and really start to have some conversations. This is all about building a conversation, everyone having an understanding that, for our safety, for adult safety, for child safety, communication, talking through concerns and working to find solutions together is the way. Now, in the third section, we are going to be looking at talking about online safety with your children. So that part of the conversation, sometimes it can be a bit awkward to broach, you might feel, but there are ways in. There are ways to start that conversation without anyone feeling awkward and everyone feeling comfortable that we're all learning and developing together. So these are the three sections we'll be looking at. You can see them on the screen there. It's going to be a jam-packed session, so remember, again, your pen and paper or note-taking device. Let's kick off with the first section now and introduce some understanding of online safety. Now, we want to establish an understanding for ourselves by really understanding some key concerns. We're going to look at challenges that parents and carers may well face in the digital age. Kids over the last sort of 15, 20 years have never known a time when they couldn't connect to the entire world via the internet. I'm not one of those. I grew up in a non-digital childhood, essentially. They probably spend more time online than anybody else, and probably more time than you spend online as well. As a parent, we've got other things to do, haven't we? But yeah, it's important to be able to keep an eye and keep a track of all of these things. Now, this is an exercise for you. Pop this into the chat. What are the biggest concerns that you face in keeping your children safe online? What things have you seen that you might have seen on the news, or you might have just experienced yourself, stuff you've come across, conversations you've overheard? Pop some of these concerns into the chat for us. We'd love to know what's going on and maybe what's brought you here this afternoon specifically. There might be a specific issue or challenge that you would like to have covered, and hopefully we will be looking at all of the key areas that will help you to cover those challenges. Now, screen time tends to be a fairly big one. Controlling what content your children can see is another one, because you do have open access. Unless you've got your filters and your safe searches on, you can find pretty much anything, and some of those things may be less than desirable. Maybe the amount of time that your kids spend on gaming, balancing that with real life and getting out into the fresh air and all those types of things. So anything that you feel that where the digital world has had an impact. I can see a comment that's come in. Thank you, Lucy K, and a good afternoon to you. Keeping kids safe on social media. Absolutely. Okay, fine. So we are going to be covering and looking at some of the channels and some of the ways that we can keep your children safe wherever they are online. So keep an eye out for those. And again, keep your comments, please, coming through in the chat. Now, there are other things which have been noted as being of major concerns over the last few years. In the kind of these are real quotes essentially that you can see in the polls that have been taken. You can see that parents are demonstrating specific issues that they're willing to share, things that have come up for them. Now, parents need to be more involved, engaged, and educated. And again, that's perhaps for you to decide. But ultimately, tech is such a fast-moving area. It is hard to keep up to date, but looking at some of the key safety sites that we're going to be covering later in the module can help you to do just that and to understand perhaps some of the emerging threats. My children are more tech-savvy than I am. I hear that one a lot. Maybe that is the case. They've got a multitude of devices, and have you noticed how quickly kids seem to pick up how to do something? Click, 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 done. And you think, that took me a little while longer to do that and achieve that myself. So if that's one of your concerns, again, maybe it's time to think about doing a couple of courses, digital safety courses, or just understanding the amazing amount of technology that perhaps is in your phone, in your device, your iPad, on the laptop, on the PC, all of the things that you can do to perhaps just lock things down a little bit. Safety is paramount. I'm concerned what they get up to and I'm not monitoring them. Yes, that is a big concern. That's probably where having open and frank conversations can come in, and understanding and sharing in the experience with your children, so that they feel like it's just a normal, natural thing to be sharing what they've been doing, the fun they've been having, the people they've been talking to. People can pretend to be anyone online. That is something, unfortunately, which has come up, which again can be taken. You have to be really, really careful about who you are communicating with online, because I can't see you, and often when we're online communicating across forums or in chat rooms, we can't see the other people too. So we have to ensure that we're taking a step back and that we are actually potentially talking to the people that we're supposed to be talking to, and that again we are dealing with individuals who have our best interests at heart. This era of technology, kids don't play outside anymore. That fresh air, we do need to get out. I know quite a few, perhaps of my nephews, nieces, who are online quite a lot playing games and things, and they got their curtains drawn. You say, get outside, get into the fresh air, go out and enjoy yourself as well. So getting a balance and keeping a healthy balance, maybe, that fresh air, healthy diet, making sure that everything is essentially done in a balanced way. I don't want them stumbling across things they shouldn't be stumbling across. Exactly that. Again, there are a few mechanisms that you can employ within your devices to be able to filter out content that you might find undesirable, which we will be covering too. As a bigger picture, being online is now very much part of everyday life. You can see some startling statistics on the screen there. 81% of 12 to 15s use a smartphone to go online. 81%. Between the ages of 12 to 15, key developmental ages for your children. 67% of 8 to 11-year-olds play games online. Now, again, some of these games might have interactive chat functions, so you have to be aware of the games they're playing and the functionality that's within that game. 73% of 5 to 7-year-olds use a tablet to go online. So it's absolutely critical that they're not getting exposed to things that you just would not really want them to see. The pace of technology, the example of Pokemon Go, 45 million users within just a few days. There are lots of trends. Fortnite is also something extremely popular now. It's gained 125 million players in less than a year, and 125 new players registered, putting the total at nearly 250 million. Now, those statistics are a couple of years old, so goodness knows the actual figures now, but it's a lot. And again, it's worth keeping an eye on to know, what am I dealing with here? So tech is, though, it has to be said, an amazing force for good. We don't want to stop our children from using it because, as you can see, the 3 benefits of absolutely many there, but you can access a wealth of information for learning and for homework, lots of resources, lots of really clever, fun ways to learn and to build up learning in any particular area that you or your children want to get involved with. There are interactive tools and games that can aid learning too, again, to make it that fun experience, very different from the classroom in many, many cases. But it also gives us the freedom of expression and finding a voice and establishing role models. There's a lot of ways that you can hook into things that you admire. You can look at where your values fit in against other people's by a lot of the comments online, a lot of the social media platforms. You can start to get a feel for who you are and who other people are by using the superb technology that we are surrounded with. So the second exercise, there's another one here, but again, please pop your answer in the chat if you'd like to do that, is what do your children actually do online? What are you aware of that they're up to in a positive way? What are they doing? Are they gaming? Are they downloading? Are they connecting with friends, playing games, social media? Do you feel, I suppose the main question here is that you've got a complete handle on what they are doing and when they're doing it within the times or the limits that you've given them, as parents, in terms of setting those boundaries? And how do you then monitor what they're doing online as well? So if you've got any answers to any of those questions, please do put them in the chat. Again, it's great for us to be able to learn from each other. There are lots and lots of different things that we can do. And again, we all have busy lives, so we all have different ways of doing things too. So how are children using the internet? As we've mentioned already, we're growing up in a different world compared definitely to my generation. The average daily screen time is around 3 hours, 15 minutes a day. So digital technology has really become a fundamental part of children's lives. When I was at school, we were using pen and paper and little workbooks, but now you see so many schools and colleges that are using tablets and tablet technology and iPads, that sort of thing. So we can be online for a great deal of our day. Now, what we want to ensure is that we really do understand from what people's experiences, what they feel their children are doing online and what they're keeping tabs with. I can see there a comment from Lucy again. Gaming, downloading, social media. We are not monitoring enough. Okay, fine. If you know you're not monitoring enough, Lucy, good step, good place to start. And again, we'll give you some tools and some websites later on in the presentation that can help you get up to speed. And again, just look at the fundamental areas for you to keep checking. So you can see the stat on the screen. About 26 posts a day if you're between 11 and 16 on social media. That's quite a lot. That's still quite a lot. Even if you broke that down into, that's over an hour if you're awake for 24 hours. So you can see that we might be doing a string of posts at any given time too. 62% of children aged 11 and 12 have a social media profile, despite the minimum age being 13. I know there's a lot of peer pressure. I know that there's a lot of pressure for everybody to be doing these things, and everyone else has got a profile. Why haven't I? But sometimes these age limits are set for a really, really good reason. So keep an eye on that too. That's still quite a high percentage of children under the minimum age to actually be on social media platforms. And then a third of children are playing online against people they haven't met in person. We mentioned Fortnite as perhaps one of those examples earlier on. So that's 1 in 3 are out there talking, communicating, and perhaps being in touch with people they've never met before. And of course, those people can come from very wide spectrums of life. So perhaps even just monitoring who they've been talking to, who they were talking to on that live chat with their headset on. That helps to build and bring about a conversation where, again, you can start to voice concerns if you feel anything is not quite as it should be. Okay, now we're going to just pop into the first pause for questions. I don't think anything's come in just yet, but no, not at all, but that's absolutely fine. So if you do think of anything as the presentation continues, just pop those into chat for us and we'll do our utter best to answer any questions that you have, or at least as well be able to signpost you on to further resources. So, okay, I'm going to move on to the next section, which is how to keep your children safe online. We're going to be looking at some risks. We're going to address our concerns, and then we're going to be looking at some of those practical steps we've been talking about and some of the tools that can help us to do that. Let's have a look at some of the key risks that we want to tackle. So again, overview of things that parents can worry about. There's quite a list there. So screen time and wellness. Screen time, wellness, sleep. Sleep's another important thing that we do need to keep an eye on. There's cyberbullying. There's the potential of online grooming. There's something called phishing. There's inappropriate content. And of course, there are scams. And as parents, we've probably experienced a few of these ourselves. And so again, maybe that's useful information that we might be able to pass on to our children, things to look out for, avoiding clickbait, for example, and links to things that just look too good to be true. We'll cover those in a bit more detail. So let's start with screen time. Now, screen time does offer opportunities, as we know, as we can see, lots of learning opportunities at the touch of a button. But what we don't want to do is to have that to impact their overall well-being. Now, there are lots of pros and cons. We've seen a few of them already about engaging through devices. So let's have a look at what we can do to really take those concerns on board. Let's have a look at some key areas here. I mentioned sleep. So too much screen time can impact your sleep. It can impact your behavior and it can impact your brain development. So sleep cycles are affected by blue light from screens, tricking your brain into thinking it's daylight, making it difficult to sleep. That's why a number of devices you will see will have that softer light option, which reduces the blue light and then helps you hopefully get to sleep a little bit quicker. There are effects on behavior that have been noted. Even if it's just looking at your smartphone 150 times a day or picking it up over 100 times, these figures are going up and up and up. We always want to remain in control of our devices rather than feeling that perhaps they might be controlling us in some way. Now, screen time can have an effect on brain development. Screen-based entertainment increases the nervous system and the points of stimulation in our nervous system. And sometimes, because of the bombardment of those images, we're actually forming less memories of what we're seeing because there's just so much information to take in. So we want to make sure that our brain's developing, it has the time to take in all of the useful information, that we've got a way to absorb and reflect on that information as well. So those are some of the issues. Now, how are we actually going to proactively deal with some of these? So lockdown probably brought this into full effect for a lot of people and a lot of families. The lockdown situation led to higher screen time, probably much across the board, because we couldn't go out, we couldn't see people as much, but we all still wanted to keep in touch with our friends and with our family. There was schooling issues, socializing, exercise, and entertainment. Everything that we were doing pretty much had to shift online. So not all screen time, as it says there, is created equally. So we want a balanced digital diet. That's a great phrase, a balanced digital diet that still leaves us a lot of room for creativity, to learn, and to connect. There are some tips that we can do to achieve this. So we find a balance between quality and quantity. Actively looking at what is going on and maybe setting aside times of day for specific things, maybe at the weekends, so that we know that we've got a bit of entertainment time, we've got a bit of YouTube time, maybe we've got a bit of learning time. Then we're going to go out, we're going to go for a walk, we're going to get some fresh air and make ourselves feel better through getting out into the world. That can help to create family harmony as well, because a well-used phrase, I'm sure, across a lot of families is, can you just put your phone down for a moment, please, while I have a quick chat with you, or while you eat your dinner, or whatever you're doing, what you're doing. You see a lot of multitasking, people doing things, but also being on their phone. And sometimes the greatest well-being can come just from being in the moment and experiencing things as they happen. A good example of that, I think, is if you're filming a concert, for example, through a little screen, but the artist is just up there. I much prefer just to watch the artist in the moment because I'm there. We're all different though. Now, one of the tools that we can look at is Google Family Link. You can temporarily lock your child's device at different times of the day. So you can actually have external control, perhaps over the device, again, depending on their ages and depending on the conversations I think that you've had with them, so that they understand what you're doing and why. So you might set a bedtime routine, for example, to lock your child's phone while they sleep, so that if they do wake up in the night, their first temptation isn't just to jump on the phone. Lock devices over homework or dinner so that they can actually focus, get the job done. They might well get things done quicker, so they've got more time to be entertained if they're focusing perhaps on one thing at a time. Now, you might decide the right amount of screen time for your child, depends on what they're watching, playing, or learning. You can use Family Link's app activity reports to see which apps your child's using the most, so you can get a real feel for what they're actually doing with their time. Now, this is a great tool, but if you feel you'd like them to have more control in a game-like experience, then there is another fantastic tool called Forest app. So Forest enables you to grow a beautiful forest of different trees each day in terms of managing screen time. So you will turn your device off or have the app up, and it says there 59 minutes and 40 seconds left of that hour, where there's going to be no screen activity, no phone activity whatsoever. It builds a beautiful forest as you stay off of your device. And one of the interesting, almost emotional kind of draws, I think, for this type of app is that if you do jump on your phone and use another app, the tree that you're growing, the life that you're bringing through your app actually dies. And that's a great hook. Again, in terms of perhaps responsibility and people feeling a connection to some of the things that they're doing and why that can make a big difference as well. There's a responsibility and an accountability element in there. So we do have some top tips to manage screen time. You need to be the role model, and that's important because we still do spend time on our phones as parents, don't we? We still do catch ourselves perhaps scrolling a little bit more than perhaps we'd like to, and think about the example that is potentially setting to your children. Encourage those alternative activities. It could be actually picking up a book rather than reading it on the screen, or a favorite magazine, going outside to play a game, or maybe just even visiting a friend. Again, all of these things take specific periods of time, and you can start to segment that time out if you think this is going to be something of a challenge in the initial stages. People still work very well to adapting to new habits. Agree on an appropriate time that people can use their device and perhaps how long for. There might even be in the initial stages, again, a reward that they can get if they stick to their pledge of how long they're going to be off their device for and the other things that they're going to do. So you can make it into a real fun thing. Also, just encourage critical thinking. Get your children to think about what the implications for them could also be. They will start to digest that. They will start to make comparisons and look around them and be able to understand, okay, actually there are some times when I need to do other things because I actually really do enjoy doing other things, playing games, playing board games, seeing my friends, having a conversation. All of those things can really, really, really change your day. So the next thing we're going to look at is inappropriate content. You might stumble across unsuitable sites by accident. Sometimes you might find content on apps you've downloaded, or maybe via links that have been sent by their friends. They might find inappropriate content through chatting to other people online, or through some inter-device communication. You've got Bluetooth, or you've got AirDrop if you've got an Apple device. So some of the types of content that your children could come across that is going to be seen as inappropriate. You've got pornographic material. Of course, you don't want to expose your children to that type of thing because you've got to bear in mind your child's age and maturity level. And again, remembering the age ranges that we saw earlier on in this presentation about kids that are using devices, 5 to 7-year-olds, 11 to 12, 11 to 14, 12 to 16. Again, impressionable ages. We've got sites encouraging crime, racism, eating disorders, or possibly even things like suicidal ideation. Again, a child's curiosity is probably boundless, but there still have to be boundaries in terms of the context that these sites might be presenting themselves with, and how you can, again, combat that. Well, if they're doing that, then I'd like to do that. It's all about, again, understanding values and making sure that your children can understand the differences between what's appropriate and what's not. There could be images of violence or cruelty, content containing swearing, unmoderated chat rooms, or gambling sites. Again, things which might seem reasonably harmless. Maybe things like some of the game sites can seem a little bit harmless at first, but they can lead to addictions and difficulties and other problems. So it's really worth, again, perhaps if you are monitoring app activity, if you see any of that type of activity going on, to be able to help your child understand why that's not really something for them. Again, it's all about that conversation. So to protect your children from inappropriate content, start a conversation. You can get a family agreement in place. Start logging conversations and having conversations, perhaps about boundaries. You could give your child some strategies on how to cope with anything upsetting they see online. Come and see me, come and talk to me. Let me know what's gone on. Let me know what's bothered you. And again, we can talk through that. So there are ways to start a conversation. Talk about what you might find, the sites they go on, again, maybe through some of that app activity, to help them understand that there are things that you'd prefer they didn't see, and there are things that they would probably prefer they didn't see as well. Again, come and tell me about it. We can work through it together. So think before you click is an important one. We do get a lot of links, again, that clickbait term, things that seem too good to be true, but things that generally might kind of really entice an inquiring mind. Sometimes things are too good to be true, and we have to be really, really careful. So ignore pop-ups, and there are also ways that you can block pop-ups in your browser settings too. And maybe for the younger children, supervise their online activity where you can do. Try and be in the same room. Keep an eye out for the type of content that they're using. Celebrate the wins. You might just catch something and say, okay, I was in the room. I was lucky. I'm glad I saw that. I'm lucky I saw that. I was just around, and be able to perhaps steer them away and look at more appropriate content. So the internet is always going to be, and is going to remain to be, I think, a complex place. It was not intentionally built for children overall as an audience, but it's not as regulated. It's getting better in terms of the regulation, but of course there's still a long way to go, and there are always things that we can do to safeguard our children when they are online and make sure that they are being kept safe at all times. So we can go into our devices. Let's have a look at some of our device settings. Now, most devices that you will see are going to have some type of controls in them. Device controls can restrict access to specific features and functions that exist on a device. So have a look on your Android device, on your Apple iOS device. Many smartphone manufacturers across the board pretty much have settings that are going to help you. You've got screen time features on the iOS versions that are now regular, in terms of letting you know how many times you pick it up, how many times you look at particular content, the apps you've used the most, the amount of time that you spent on them. So that again is a good indication of what's going on. Look at device settings, go online as well and research, what can I do with my Android device, with my Apple device, to help keep my children safe, or perhaps again limit some of the activity that I want to be able to limit. Now, you also have parental controls across all of your broadband, mobile and Wi-Fi providers as well. You can get filters to limit and the limit is the word. It's probably very difficult to entirely eradicate stuff that you don't want people to see, because there's always ways around it, and something often kind of slips through. But you can really make a strong impact there by looking at the manuals from BT, Sky, TalkTalk, Virgin and other providers. Now you can go into the back end. There's usually an account associated when you've got a BT account, a Sky account, TalkTalk account, Virgin account, where you can go in at a website level and stop certain access to certain types of content. So that might again be useful for things like gambling sites, that type of thing. So see what your provider makes available for you to be able to limit, and see if that would be appropriate. Now there is a thing called Google Safe Search. I don't know if anybody uses anything like this at all in terms of safe searches. On certain websites and internet platforms like Google and iTunes, you can switch on, although iTunes has actually been discontinued, is now actually Apple Music, thinking about it. You can switch on a family-friendly filter that should block any content unsuitable for children. On YouTube, there is a YouTube restricted mode, and there's also a brilliant app called YouTube Kids, which again is highly filtered to ensure it's just younger age content that's being played. There are no flawless systems though, as I say, so it makes sense to use this alongside perhaps other parental controls as well. These protections are really good though for younger children. Older kids will figure out how to turn the filter off, probably, if their curiosity gets the better of them, and if they are actually searching for things that perhaps they shouldn't be. So there are always ways around things, but again, for perhaps the younger kids, putting on some of these safeguards is going to be enough for a while. You can consider the web browsers that you use, which things like Google Chrome, for example. There's a feature that lets you create different account profiles for supervised users and for managers, giving you complete control of how your your children use the internet, because they'll log into their own profile, and that profile can have settings applied to it. So that's looking at a few of the tools that we've got out there. There are many others out there as well, though. But let's have a quick recap of some of the ones we've just mentioned. So we've got the YouTube Kids app. It's parent-approved content. You can block or flag content that slips through. You can review the watch history to again, like you can on standard YouTube, to see what's been going on and to see what's been watched. You can also set time limits for use. That could be very handy indeed. You can go on YouTube Kids for a couple of hours, for an hour, whatever it might be, and you can actually set that so it will only run for that period of time. So let's have a look at some of those tools and resources. Now there's a good Link there, internetmatters.org/parental-controls. So again, if Sarah is able perhaps to share that link, find out more about parental controls. So check your child's smartphone settings, use the parental controls on your home broadband network, and use settings like Safe Search and apply the filters that you find appropriate. Now, the next topic is unfortunately very prevalent and something to really keep an eye out: cyberbullying. Now, bullying just makes people feel terrible and helpless, and it doesn't really matter what age you are there. Now, the internet and social media have changed the way that children can experience bullying. So there's the comparisons here. Back in my day, in the playground was one of the big places where the bullies would come to light. Face-to-face bullying, you'd see smaller audiences within close quarters. It's really limited then to those who are around at the time. The bully can be identified because they're there, and it's easier to prove and to punish. But with cyberbullying, because of the way you can stream and live stream and upload images and share them to platforms, you can reach a vast audience in a matter of seconds. And you do not want your child to inflict that on somebody else, or for somebody else to inflict that on your child, where there then becomes a permanent record of that bullying online too. Cyberbullying, hurtful comments and images being shared multiple times. As people get to see it, again, they can share it throughout their own networks, and then it's very, very difficult to get back or take down. Now, cyberbullying, there is a degree of anonymity to the perpetrator. That's probably less than people think, but nonetheless, it's going to take a bit more time to work out who is doing what, where, when, and why. It is reasonably difficult to police and to punish, but again, great steps are being made across all in law enforcement agencies and cyber help agencies to ensure that if something bad does happen, that the perpetrator can be found as quickly as is possible. So when it comes to cyberbullying, what we're going to be looking out for, there are some signs generally. Stopping using their electronic devices suddenly or unexpectedly. That can be a big giveaway. Seeming nervous or jumpy when using their devices, or becoming obsessive about being constantly online. Something else again to look for. And again, that secretive mode that you can slip into when something's going on that you don't really want to be happening. Perhaps a reluctance to go to school or take part in the usual social activities. Again, perhaps small indications or clues that something in that social group isn't quite working. It's a startling fact, but 1 in 8 of 12 to 15-year-olds say they've been bullied on social media. That's a very, very high number. And we really need to spend a lot of time helping people understand that what one person might potentially see as being relatively harmless can be very, very damaging to another, and that we need to treat each other with dignity and respect online and really establish those strong, strong boundaries to ensure that that happens. Now, there are different forms of bullying as well, more than you probably perhaps would bring to mind at any given time. So let's have a look at these. These are things to look out for too. So just general harassment. So targeting an individual or a group with persistent and offensive messages, which could develop into cyber stalking. Sometimes people can get into the habit, and again, people often find the oddest things funny. And it might just, their behavior could develop into just doing it again, and again. There's outing, which is publicly sharing personal, private, or potentially embarrassing information, photos or videos about someone online. Again, there are lots of platforms now that you can share information on. So again, it's understanding that we want to be sharing positive things that are going to always just be helping people to develop and grow, have fun and laugh, not for the damaging elements. There's trolling, which is posting provocative and insulting messages about sensitive subjects, or maybe even inflicting racism or misogyny on an individual. Again, those things done repetitiously can have a serious impact on the well-being of an individual. Catfishing is unfortunately reasonably prevalent as well, stealing someone's profile or setting up fake profiles to lure people into starting online relationships. Be careful about those friend invites that you accept. Is it definitely the person that you expect it to be? Again, use good sense to tell that you are talking to the person that you think you are talking to. Now, there's a thing called roasting. ganging up on an individual online and sending offensive abuse until the victim is seen to crack. Really horrible, offensive way for people to spend their time, and always, again, at the detriment of usually an individual. Just not ways that you want to be productively spending your day. If you see evidence of that type of behavior, that really is something that needs to be addressed very, very quickly. And griefing, abusing and angering people through online gaming. One of the examples of that, it just can kind of ruin your day, is that perhaps in some of the games that you have, if your online character dies and it comes back to life and it respawns at a certain point, sometimes people can be there just waiting to kill you again online, again and again and again and again. And of course, that ruins your experience. You don't want to play that game anymore. And it can, of course, set trends that you don't want. It could stop you from playing that game that gives you a lot of enjoyment, a lot of fun, and releases those endorphins. So we need to, again, treat each other with respect and make sure that when our children are playing online, that they treat other people with the same respect that we're expecting for them. So what we want to be able to do in terms of do's and don'ts, we do want to find out what's going on, establish facts around an incident, and keep an open mind. Keep as calm as you can, keep as pointed towards and focused on the issue that's come up, and have a backwards and forwards conversation. Talk about the blurred line between uploading and sharing content, because it's funny or might get lots of likes, because people do like to be, my post is really, really popular, where we don't want that content to in any way cause offense or to hurt anyone. Those are likes we definitely don't want for those reasons. Teach by example, model and encourage positive behavior in your child, and praise them as they take this on board, as they act in the ways that you want them to act online, showing that respect that we've just been talking about. Now, learn from it too. Help your child learn from what's happened. Think about what you could do differently. Is there a way around that? Is there a way in order to avoid that happening again? Because we're going to change our behavior, change our habits as a result of having experienced that thing. Now, don't get too upset. Definitely don't ignore it. Take the situation seriously and don't blame someone else. There's always something you can do to contribute and to help. Also, don't condone it. If your child was being bullied and then they cyberbullied themselves in retaliation, it's that whole two wrongs can't make a right. And you don't want to encourage the bully's behavior. A clear line needs to be drawn where you are able to say, this needs to stop, and this is why it needs to stop, and these are the steps that I'm going to take to make it stop. Now, don't just react by taking away their devices either. This could make the situation worse. Just encourage them to find other ways to be able to deal with the issue. Don't take away their devices, because if they might just find another way to get online, which isn't going to help you solve the problem whatsoever. It's important to mention that nobody likes to think that their own child could be a cyberbully, but young people can sometimes be drawn into this behavior without realizing the impact of their actions. Again, to get more likes because they think it's funny and they think, oh, they'll be fine with that. But sometimes when people have got other things on their mind, some of those damaging remarks can really, really sink in. Okay, so let's move on to online grooming. It's a word to describe people befriending children in order to take advantage of them potentially for sexual purposes. This can be a really tricky area, as I'm sure most of us would appreciate, to speak to our children about. However, there are signs that you can look for. Again, being secretive about who they're talking to online. It is unfortunately quite easy to pretend to be someone else online. So children can sometimes get into these conversations whose real identities they may not know. They might well perhaps pick up terms that you wouldn't expect them to know for their age, sexual language you wouldn't expect them to know. Sometimes they might switch screens or move tabs when you come near the computer, all indicating potentially that there could be something that they really, really don't want you to see. Again, a big stat there, 40% of children remove privacy settings on social media to attract more friends or followers. I need to get as many friends as I possibly can. But again, that can then potentially give access to people that you don't want talking to your children. Privacy settings are really, really important. Friends invites, who can invite at any given time, who you're going to accept, even who's tagging you in material. All of those types of things keep those privacy settings intact. And again, perhaps something for you to review and maybe say, let's keep that down. You've got a good amount of friends on that platform. I know all of those people too. For people that if you're making new friends, let me have a look at who you're making friends with online, and then we can work through that together. So it is a conversation starter. Here, I read a story about an adult pretending to be a child online. Do you know if any of your friends have experienced anything similar? It's a very, very fair question. You can talk about the risk that not everyone online can be who they say they are. You need to agree the rules that you're not going to be sharing too much personal information online. Don't tell people where you live, you give them your contact details or anything that might make you identifiable. Don't ever share pictures of your body online either. And don't ever meet up with anyone that they've met just purely online. Again, these are things that can be avoided with some good overview. So stay engaged, review their social media. As we've said, have a look at what's going on their feeds and their timelines together. You could be one of their friends online within those accounts that you don't have to interfere from it's not cool because I've got my gran or my mum online on my account, but they can just be there, and then at least they've got visibility over what's going on. Watch and observe rather than take part, I think, there, to ensure that, again, it doesn't put the kids off telling you what platforms that they're actually on. So updating privacy settings is something that you can, again, do on all of your accounts. The best way to deal with grooming online is to prevent it happening by making sure your child is well informed. They use their privacy settings on social networks, and they know that they can talk to you if they do feel unsafe or worried. Start the dialogue with them early, as soon as they go online, really, and teach your children how to be safe. Remembering, again, that fact that we came up with in the earlier parts of this presentation, where the minimum age is 13 on most social networks. Now, there are organizations, again, fantastic websites actually, CEOP, there's Childline, and then there's Internet Watch Foundation. So I will ask Sarah just to share the links to those particular organizations. If you've got any concerns, these organizations are there to address those concerns. They will tell you what's going on, what you can do. They can tell you how scenarios that you're going to outline to them are best dealt with. So use all of the resources and all of the tools that are available to you. These, as I say, these organizations you can see on the screen are being developed with keeping you and your children safe at all times. So utilize them for your own benefit. Now, privacy and identity fraud is a big thing. It can be difficult to maintain a child's privacy because they might not understand what information is safe to share online or what default privacy settings are. So let's have a look again at some of the things to look out for. You might start to suspect your child's identity has been stolen if they start to get bills. Again, if they're under 18, they're not going to be getting bills through. So why are they getting bills through for something that they haven't ordered? Starting to get emails from an organization that they don't recognize, so who's signing them up on particular sites, or receiving any letters regarding government benefits or tax payments. So just keep an eye out on what's going on, and avoid that identity fraud thing. Even changing passwords to accounts regularly is going to help you to do that, so that people can't get into your account over time or guess passwords, crack passwords, and thus really get the keys to the kingdom and pretend that they might be you online. So if you want to protect your child from identity theft, 4 great steps to take and to have a look at. Check their online privacy settings, go into their browsers, go into their devices. Look at the settings, find out what is already out there, search your child's full name. That's a good one. Put the name into a search engine and see what information and photographs come up. That can be an early indicator that something's gone up that you might not approve of. There is a platform called DeSeatMe, DESEAT.me, which can check online exposure and, again, where you're being mentioned. Another tool that you can use, I use this for my own name, is Google Alerts. So you put in the name or the phrase or whatever it is that you want to get an alert on, and then every time that name pops up somewhere in an internet result, you're going to get an email about it. I had no idea that there were so many people worldwide with the same name as me, but it's a good way just to check that you're not being misrepresented somewhere, or that someone hasn't actually stolen your identity. Take action and go incognito. So check websites on which they appear to remove inaccurate comments or photographs, and use incognito browsing so that the history isn't saved, and that so you're doing everything to really cloak your activity as best you possibly can. If your child's identity has been stolen, be sure to tell any affected websites about the problem and get your child to log in and change their password immediately. So again, that thing of changing passwords, don't use the same password across different accounts. Don't use obvious passwords like 1234566 or 12345678910, because these are things that can be cracked by anybody trying to crack them in literally no time. There are also sites that you can find where you can test your passwords to see how strong they are. When you start to use passwords that have a combination of capitals, letters, numbers, and special characters, and you go over 8, 9, 10 of those, your password can take hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years to crack, thus giving you a reasonable amount of safety in terms of being hacked that way. That can just be a really important thing to do. Passwords, if you use password managers, for example, we want to make them as complex as we possibly can, whilst of course recognizing that we still need to remember them when we want to access those sites. All right, so we're going to come up to the next pause for questions, and I'll just have a look to see if anything's come in. There are no more questions so far, but again, I can see Sarah sharing a lot of really useful information in the chat. So again, click on those links, bookmark them, save them for later for further research, and address any specific issues that you have. Now, this is the thing. Let's talk about online safety with our children. It's about building digital resilience. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, but it's part of our responsibilities, I believe, as a parent to tackle this. We're saying that conversations, being open-minded, being flexible and adaptable, and reacting to needs is a really, really good way to go. Perfection isn't possible in any area of life, but you can do your best and you can make impacts and make inroads for anything that you're trying to achieve. So let's have a look at some of those conversation starters, because we want to build an approach to create a great environment for kids to talk about online safety as well. It's something that will affect them, and then it's potentially in the future something that's going to affect their kids as well. We don't want to bury our heads in the sand about technology. You can't tell kids not to do social media, really. You can't tell them don't get Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram, because it's the same as anything else. You can in some ways make those platforms more enticing and interesting to them. So it's really about aiding your child to understand the boundaries within those applications or those platforms when they are using them. So there are 4 simple ways which we can see on screen to build a conversation. Talk early and talk often. It's just going to be one of those conversations that we have. Choose the right time. Timing is everything. Open up and share too, some of the things you've experienced, some of the things that you've seen as well, and create a safe space to do that. Make people feel comfortable. It helps people to relax and open up and to really give you their true feelings or thoughts or experiences. So a 5-point plan that we've built for parents is understand the risks, but risks don't always have to translate into harm, and risks aren't harm. We want your children to be inquisitive and to challenge really what they see and what they hear online. We want them to feel comfortable enough that they can speak openly, honestly, and freely with you. So we need to keep the risks in proportion. It doesn't have to be a world ender. It just has to be something which you can say, keep an eye out for that. It's reasonably rare, or I know based on the platforms that you go on that this doesn't really happen much, but it can happen every now and again. Keep that communication regular and consistent. As I say, integrate it into normal daily family life conversations. Put in place the useful tools and settings that we were talking about previously, and have a family agreement, like a little contract that you've drawn up. We're going to do this because, we're not going to do that because, we understand why that's not suitable or appropriate because. Grows everyone's understanding and gives everyone a common framework to work from. And then as your children grow, develop coping strategies that foster resilience. So that again, if you do if you are unfortunate to experience something that you don't want to experience online, that you're able to take a step back, take a deep breath, and think, what is the solution to this? To be able to visit the websites like these that we've been talking about. We've got Be Internet Legends, Family Link, COP, Childline, Internet Watch Foundation, and internetmatters.org. And we're just going to have a look at Be Internet Legends now. It's an educational program developed by Google and Parent Zone that enables, that aims rather, to empower younger children to use the web safely so that they can be confident explorers of the online world. It's got a really great way to work them through systematically what doing good stuff online is actually about. Think before you share. Check it's for real. Protect your stuff. Respect each other. And when in doubt, discuss. All of the skills that we all need to have to be successful online and to be productive and positive online. Now, another one is Interland, Be Internet Legends. There's a link there, g.co/Be Internet Legends /parents. It helps parents to get involved through family activities, again, in a kind of a fun and interactive way, sharing experiences and saying, okay, let's discuss that. That's interesting, isn't it? It's a really great way, actually. I've used this a few times myself. It's a great way to get those conversations going. So schools are also getting great resources, lesson plans, stickers, posters, activities that are developed in partnership with Parent Zone, interactive school assemblies that are being run across the UK, because let's catch people at the right age, let's catch people at the right time, and let's catch people in their peer groups as well. The Interland online game that teaches the key lessons of internet safety through 4 fun, challenging games. So again, check that out. That's a collaboration between Google and Parent Zone. That could be really, really useful and a really fun thing to do, and a way to start that conversation that we've been talking about for most of this session. So we're coming through to the final pause for questions. I can't see any that have come in. I've got a comment though from Lucy. No questions, but learning a lot. Good. That's really good. That's the purpose of this type of session. There are things that sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So now we're alerted to these things, we can do our own online research, start to learn a bit more about them, start to look at the safeguards that we can put in place and eradicate, hopefully, a lot of the risks that we have been demonstrating throughout this webinar session. So your next steps, I think, is to go and do that. Go and have a look at some of the websites that we've mentioned, some of the websites that Sarah has shared in the chat. We've got your Be Internet Legends, your Family Link, your Internet Matters, your Parent Zone. Check them out. You will find a wealth of information on them to help you make informed decisions. It might alert you to things that you are doing and you think, brilliant, I can tick that box. It might alert you to things that you've not yet done. Therefore, those are things that you can start to instill, start to understand yourself, start to integrate into your daily life and make a plan going forward. You're going to feel more secure, and you're going to feel more secure when you see your children on their devices. So all good information. Think about it positively. There are always going to be solutions to these challenges. And with a lot of the resources we've just looked at, you can be the source of those solutions for your children. That just leaves me to say thank you. I really hope that you've enjoyed this overview and some of the practical things that we can do to help to keep our children safe online. We would love to know what you think about it. So please, could you just take a couple of moments to complete the feedback form. It's there as goo.gle/digital garage feedback. That is going to help us to understand what we can do more of for you, things we can do better to help you answer the questions that you need answered. So again, please do just take a moment to complete that survey. So all that really remains me to say is thank you very, very much indeed for your time and attention on this Friday afternoon. We're just getting towards tea time. So I'm going to wish you a fantastic weekend. I hope that you're going to go out and have some great times before next week comes around too quickly, as it often does. So have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you all again soon on another Google Digital Garage live webinar. Thanks for now. Bye.